Why super empaths reattract to dismissive avoidance after they pull away. It always begins with that strange ache, the silence after they pull away. The dismissive avoidant doesn't slam doors or start fights. They simply vanish into emotional distance, leaving behind unanswered texts, unspoken words, and a haunting sense of what went wrong. And for a super empath, that silence isn't just uncomfortable, it's excruciating. Because empaths feel connection deeply, almost like a sixth sense. They pick up on the energy shifts, the micro expressions, the tone in a single word. So when that connection suddenly disappears, it's not just rejection, it's emotional starvation. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Despite the pain, the empath still finds themselves drawn back. They still feel the pull. Why? Why does someone so deeply self-aware, so intuitive, keep reattracting a dismissive avoidant even after they've been emotionally shut out? To understand this magnetic pattern, we need to go deep into the psychology of both types. The dismissive avoidance world revolves around control and safety. They crave connection but fear dependence. Their childhoods often taught them that love equals vulnerability, and vulnerability equals pain. So when intimacy grows, they subconsciously retreat to protect themselves. The super empath, on the other hand, has the opposite wiring. They find safety in connection. Their sensitivity and compassion make them crave emotional closeness, not because they're needy, but because that's how they feel alive. So when the avoidant pulls away, it triggers something primal inside the empath. The urge to heal, to understand, to fix what's broken. But ironically, that very urge becomes the magnet. Because you see, to a dismissive avoidant, emotional intensity is overwhelming. But to a super empath, that intensity feels like truth. So when they first meet, it's almost electric. A perfect storm of two opposing forces. The avoidant is drawn to the empath's warmth, their acceptance, their calm understanding. For the avoidant, being seen by an empath feels both terrifying and irresistible. They've spent their whole lives hiding behind emotional walls, but suddenly someone looks past them and sees. Yet the moment that connection becomes too close, their defense mechanisms activate. They start to withdraw, to create emotional distance. And what does the empath do? They reach out harder. They sense the shift, the fading warmth, and they double their effort to keep the connection alive. This chase, this dance becomes a loop, a cycle that's painful but addictive. When the avoidant finally pulls away completely, it leaves the empath in emotional limbo. Days, weeks, or months later, something strange happens. The empath starts thinking about them again, not just missing them, but feeling their energy, almost telepathically. It's as if the emotional cord between them was stretched, but never cut. The empath starts asking themselves, why am I still thinking about them? Why can't I let go? And here's the twist. The connection isn't just emotional, it's energetic. When a dismissive avoidant detaches, they often still think about the empath silently. They replay memories. They wonder if they made a mistake, but they suppress the urge to reach out. Yet energetically, that thought sends a pulse, and the empath, being highly attuned, feels it. They sense it as an inner tug, a sudden sadness, or a memory that resurfaces out of nowhere. It's not imagination, it's resonance. The empath's nervous system is still synced to the emotional frequency of the avoidant. Now, on a psychological level, this reattraction also stems from something called trauma bonding. A dismissive avoidant gives connection in fragments, moments of warmth followed by cold withdrawal. And for the empath, who thrives on connection, this inconsistent reward pattern becomes addictive. It's like emotional gambling. The pain of the loss makes the next moment of connection feel even more euphoric. When the avoidant pulls away, the empath's mind tries to recreate that connection, hoping this time it'll stay. The empath's empathy becomes their own trap. They don't want to give up on someone they know is emotionally wounded. And deep down, they believe that if they just love harder, stay calmer, or understand better, they can heal that wound. But let's go deeper, because there's something even more profound at play. Super empaths aren't just healers of others. They're unconsciously trying to heal parts of themselves. Many empaths grew up in environments where love had to be earned, where they had to sense moods, fix problems, or stay calm to keep peace. So when they meet an avoidant, it subconsciously feels familiar. It's the same emotional terrain they learned to navigate as children. That's why the attraction feels so intense. It's not just chemistry, it's recognition. The empath's inner child feels, I know this kind of love. I can make this work. But what they don't realize is that this familiar pattern isn't love. It's repetition. The mind is trying to replay an old story in hopes of rewriting the ending. Now, from the avoidance perspective, this cycle is equally confusing. When they pull away, they often expect the empath to resent them, to get angry or move on. But when the empath instead responds with understanding and compassion, it disarms them. The avoidant starts to feel safe again, and that's when they circle back. This is how the cycle renews. The empath's kindness becomes a signal that it's safe to reconnect, and the avoidant reappears, testing the waters. They might send a casual message like, hey, how have you been? But beneath that, what they're really saying is it safe for me to feel something again? The empath, being open-hearted, usually welcomes them back, and the emotional loop resets. But the real reason super empaths reattract avoidance isn't just energetic or psychological, it's spiritual. On a deeper level, both are mirrors for each other's unfinished healing. The avoidant teaches the empath boundaries. They show them that love without self-respect leads to pain, and the empath teaches the avoidant vulnerability, that closeness doesn't have to mean danger. When the empath finally stops chasing, something powerful happens. The energy dynamic shifts. The avoidant, who once felt in control, starts to feel the loss of emotional safety. They start missing the calm presence, the emotional depth, the warmth that no casual connection can replace. And that's often when the avoidant reappears, drawn not by words but by the silent power of the empath's detachment. You see, for a super empath, the real turning point isn't when they stop loving, it's when they start loving without rescuing. When they learn to hold compassion and boundaries at the same time. Because once the empath stands in their power, they no longer chase, they attract naturally. Their energy becomes magnetic, but no longer desperate. They radiate peace instead of need. And that peace is exactly what the avoidance chaos longs for. It's why, time and again, the dismissive avoidant finds themselves thinking about the empath long after they've left. The avoidant might even enter new relationships, but they'll notice something missing, that deep emotional resonance they only felt with the empath. And in moments of loneliness, they'll scroll through old messages, replay memories, and wonder, why can't I move on from them? For the super empath, this is where the ultimate growth happens. It's when they realize that reattraction doesn't mean reconciliation. The pull they feel isn't always a sign to return. Sometimes it's an invitation to heal the part of them that keeps answering the call. Because the truth is, the avoidant doesn't need saving. They need space to face their own emotional shadows. And the empath's greatest act of love is sometimes to walk away without anger, to love from a distance without losing themselves. When that happens, the energy that once bound them in pain transforms into something higher: self-awareness, self-respect, and freedom. So why do super empaths reattract dismissive avoidance after they pull away? Because emotional energy doesn't vanish, it lingers. Because healing seeks completion, and because both souls are drawn to balance the lessons they carry. But when the empath finally stops reaching outward and begins turning that love inward, the dynamic changes forever. The avoidant may still feel the pull, may even return, but this time, it's the empath who decides the terms. They're no longer waiting for love, they've become it, and that's the paradox of the super empath. Once they stop chasing, the very energy that once repelled the avoidant begins to attract them again. Not out of need, but out of respect. Not because they're weak, but because their silence speaks louder than any plea ever could. In the end, the reattraction isn't about rekindling the old story. It's about proving that growth can rewrite it. The empath learns that love without boundaries is self-abandonment, and the avoidant learns that walls don't protect from loneliness. Both evolve, both awaken, but it all starts the moment the empath chooses peace over pursuit.